I'm Mark Sponsler, and welcome to the Stormsuirf Video Surf Forecast for the week starting Sunday, January 10th. Stormsurf, waves, weather, buoys, altimetry, snow, temperatures, El Nino, weather analysis, real data for outdoor people, all the time, no hype. We're first going to take a look at a buoy reading, a rather large buoy reading, buoy 029, Point Reyes buoy, representative of a lot of buoys along the California coast, because there is a large swell hitting, swell number 7, and producing long period energy. If you take a look at this is spectral density. It shows you the energy in all the frequency periods from 33 seconds down to 5 seconds. And if you notice, there is a rather large spike of energy centered right around the 20-second period mark with, what is that, about 7.2 feet of energy at 22 seconds, almost 12 feet of energy at 20 seconds, another 12 feet of energy at 18 seconds. You get the general idea. The summation of all this area, and it's not significant wave heights, because significant wave heights includes all this, wind chop, basically, even though we say it's 13, 14 second period energy, that's noise compared to what's happening right here. Okay? But the actual height of this primary swell right here is 18.2 feet at 19.4 seconds. And if you calculate that out, that comes to 35-foot near-shore surf conditions. All right, and we've actually graphed that out here. We do this. These are the high-res buoys. You can see the surf height is off the graph. That started at around about 9 a.m. this morning and continued through about 3 p.m. this afternoon. So the point being, very large swell is hitting the coast right now, and you can then look at the details down here. Let's see if we can get that centered for you right here. Time, GMT, I know that doesn't work for a lot of people. We're working to get that fixed. But you just scan right down here. This is calculated surf height, 35 feet, 30 feet, 34, 33. You get the idea. All right in that 10 to down to about 2 p.m. Oh, even down there, 3 p.m. time frame. And significant wave heights, the magical 20 at 20, 21 feet at 20 seconds, 21 feet at 17 seconds. You get the idea. 19.8 at 18. Generally, we could call that 20 feet, 20 seconds with pure swell, nearly the same size. That's where all the energy is generating, we would say 40 to 50 foot waves, maybe even bigger on some of the sets, maybe pushing 60 foot at select big wave spots today. So, large swell indeed is hitting the coast. All right, taking a look at significant wave heights to the North Pacific Ocean, we see yet another system, storm number 8, with 43-foot seas in the Gulf of Alaska right now, aimed at, again, the U.S. West Coast. What a machine, indeed. Let's start digging into the details. As usual, we'll start looking at jet stream level winds. These winds up about 30,000 feet help support the formation of gales, and when they form, help direct their track. We're looking for a trough, a dip in the jet, just like right there. And what that helps do is create a counterclockwise flow aloft and down at the surface. That's the hallmark of low pressure. Low pressure, if it's deep enough, generates winds. Winds, if they're strong enough, generate seas. Seas, as they radiate away from the fetch area, turn into swell, and swell, when it hits your beach, turns into surf. All right, we have again a just magnificent jet stream with winds, 210 knots, pushing over the dateline into the Gulf of Alaska, forming a trough. Needless to say, there is another storm with generating solid seas, producing swell on the way, focused primarily on the U.S. West Coast with sideband energy down into Hawaii. The machine is well oiled. All right, we'll put this into motion. The trough continues into about Monday, then it flattens out a little bit. New pocket of wind energy builds off Japan to 190 knots and then to 200 knots, feeding development of another trough on Tuesday over the dateline. That one gets pretty steep as we get into Wednesday. Not as optimal for generating a broad storm, but maybe a small, pretty wound up system right there north of Hawaii, and again pushing off to the northeast. Maybe another one even behind that. theoretically organizing. Secondary energies, we get into Thursday. The machine continues. 190 knot winds feeding this other trough. So what would that be? Number 7, 8, maybe number 9, storm number 9. And that continues as we get into Saturday, just carving out a big area. But notice winds backing off a little bit here as we get into Sunday. But another batch of winds building off Japan to 190 knots. And a pinch trough on Monday or Sunday night theoretically developing. The machine rolls on. Next up, looking at surface level pressure, surface level winds for 18Z Sunday. That's 10 a.m. Pacific time. Gale, was storm number 8 with 40 knot winds in the Gulf of Alaska. Where is it aimed at? Well, right in this target, just like all the others have been. It fades out on Monday. A new system tries to develop. This one a little bit more to the west on Tuesday afternoon. Also notice another system developing off of Japan as well, both with 45 knot winds in patches, building up to 55 knots in this one Wednesday. Hawaii, you should keep your eye on this one indeed, because this one's supposed to fall more southeast. So instead of doing like all the others, just sort of sending sideband energy down the islands, this one looks like it might do more for generating direct swell for the Hawaiian Islands. As we're into Wednesday night, Thursday, 55 knot winds here, 50 to 55 knot winds here. They're both storms. Notice this one's sort of falling southeast a little bit, generating swell. Yet another system off the Kuril Islands as we're into Friday. This one comes very close to Hawaii. Notice almost a little bit of south wind energy for the islands there, but not having, hopefully, too much of an impact. The gale pushes northeast up into the Gulf. Another system as we get into Sunday, forming off the Kuril Islands, not making as much headway, a little bit weaker, 45 knot winds. Let's continue. All right, going back in time, we're focusing on Storm 7, the swell that is hitting right now. Developed north of Hawaii on, we'll say, Friday morning, with seas building to, here, we'll pull this down so you can see, 46 feet right there. Max seas over the whole domain. Building to 54 feet Friday, and then 58, almost 59 feet, and that is a mere, what is that, like 1,400 nautical miles away from the U.S. West Coast, aimed directly at, let's say, North and Central California, hence the giant swell that is hitting now, and with clean conditions, miracle of miracles. 57.9 foot seas continued into late Friday night. Then the system started fading, lifting off to the northeast. Also noticed storm number 8 developed off the Kuril Islands, pushed over the North Dateline region at the same time with 46 foot seas, 45 foot seas, a little bit north, not aimed real well at the Hawaiian Islands, and a bit too north for California. That's maybe kind of a blessing. Maybe it'll mean a little bit smaller surf, something that mere mortals can go out and enjoy. Anyway, sorry. So we ended there. That is Sunday 18Z. Now let's go look forward. But before we do that, one quick look here. This is storm number 7. The Jason 3 satellite made a pass over its western flank right there. Let's see here we go. Max C, 15 reading average was 44.9 feet right in there with a single reading to 44 feet with a single reading to 49.2 feet right there. Just eyeballing the models, they were in the black range, which was about 48 feet. So the model did a very good job. I mean, it said 48 foot seas. The satellite said, 45 to 49 foot seas, right on track. And of course, the swell that resulted was exactly what was forecast. All right, so looking forward, what is the effect of the winds on the ocean surface? Well, we have our system up here in we'll call it the northwestern Gulf of Alaska with 43 foot seas. There we go, right there. We'll put this in motion, step our way through it. That one slowly fades out as we get into Monday. Then we have a break. You can actually see the swell impacting the U.S. coast here. Next one forms. This one, sort of a pinched off tight one there north of Hawaii. Also notice the other system forming off the Kurils. So this would be, that was 8. This is 9. This will be storm number 10. It builds, what do we get? Some 40-ish, 46, 47 foot seas. Aimed again at Oregon and the U.S. West Coast. And this is the one targeting Hawaii. 50 foot seas as we get into Thursday, building to 52 feet, aimed pretty well at Hawaii. Well, this one continues with like 43-foot seas, and we're not even paying attention. Now, let's see. As we get into, let's go back to Friday. Back to Friday mornings where I wanted to go, right there. We had 49-foot seas, starting to take an aim more to the east, and then fading a little bit further away from California. So still large swell, but maybe a little bit more refined. You can see on Saturday, we'll step it back one more, you can literally see the raw seas from this swell impacting the Hawaiian Islands on Saturday. Then the system goes, like all the others, off to the northeast fade, blocking high pressure over California, and we're at 180 hours out, one more system off the Kuril Islands. All right, quick look at local winds. You see high pressure ridging into the North California coast on Sunday, making for basically very light winds or maybe light northwest winds in the afternoon, 3, 4, maybe 5 knots. That was it. Pretty much classy conditions all day. Trades for the Hawaiian Islands, not too strong, 10, 15 knots roughly. We get into Monday, a front trying to develop off North California. Still light winds along the coast, light trades for the Hawaiian Islands. Get into Tuesday, the front starts sinking south, maybe south winds down to not even Santa Cruz, something like that. Light trades for the Hawaiian Islands, even lighter than what it's been. As we get into Tuesday, still sort of the dividing line the high is holding, the dividing line is the Golden Gate. Here comes a system getting dangerously close to Hawaii. South winds or southwest winds over the Hawaiian Islands, turning northwest as we get into the day on Wednesday, and then turning north on Kauai, and then into Oahu later in the evening. Light winds along the California coast. Thursday, more of the same. High, dry, light winds for California. Trades try to build back into the Hawaiian Islands. Then we get into Friday. There's a possible change here. You see high pressure not inland anymore, but off the coast. A little bit of fetch developing, 15-knot winds off of central California. South winds for the Hawaiian Islands as this next system gets very close. We get into Saturday, building north winds, northwest winds, 15 knots, not too horrible. Trades return for the Hawaiian Islands. Then we get into Sunday, same sort of deal. Near shore, not too bad, but probably a little bit of bump in the ocean relative to California, and a light wind regime for the Hawaiian Islands. And there we are. It looks like almost building high pressure behind all of that, both for California and for Hawaii. Precipitation and specifically snow, we're looking at California, this area right here. It's been high and dry, high pressure. You can see it clearly ridging into the coast, acting like a barrier. The dividing line between whatever precipitation California gets seems to be a line going right through the Golden Gate, right through Tahoe and north of there. South of that line, bone dry, even really dry in this area. Really, most of the energy is up here, Washington and places north of there. We're just looking for any of this blue to work its way into California. There we go. What day is that? On Tuesday down to Cape Mendocino, and not even making it to Tahoe. And then sort of lingering after that. Another system tries to crank up, makes it to Cape Mendocino, no further south. Where are we now? We're into Sunday, a week out, and that's pretty much the end of it. High and dry. Snow forecast for Squaw Valley. Good representation of the whole Tahoe area. Nary a flake to be found. Temperatures, this is the base of Squaw, 6,000 feet. This is the top of Squaw. Red and gray is flurries. Red is just above freezing temperatures, and really not cold enough to produce any snow. So even if there was precipitation, it would be rain. Maybe this is a good thing. Hard to say. Looks like temperatures falling 10 days out from now, but for now, a 10-day dry period and pretty warm. But just for laughs, we go north where all the precipitation is. We just randomly pulled up Whistler. Forecast there, 74 inches of snow and freezing levels. Well, there's the top of Whistler. There's the base. Pretty much typical for this time of year. Lots of snow and pretty cold temperatures, but you can't get into Canada. They're U.S. citizens are locked out due to COVID. So, that's kind of the way it is. Bet you if you got into Washington, though, you'd see similar snow patterns. All right, let's go take a look long term. What's going on with the Madden-Julian Oscillation and the El Nino Southern Oscillation? As usual, we like to monitor winds on the equator across the Pacific. This is the East Pacific here. This is the West Pacific there. Here's the equator. That's New Guinea there. Dateline, 180 west. We're really looking in the West Pacific, what we call the Kelvin wave generation area. And we're looking for the active phase of the MJO. Not that we expect to find it. This whole season, the active phase has just been gone. La Nina in control. It just crushes. It's literally crushing the active phase of the MJO. And so we look at winds. This is from a series of buoys strung across the equator, the TAO buoy array, used for monitoring El Nino. We're clearly not in El Nino. We're in La Nina. And we can see that. Winds out of the east in the East Pacific, across the Central Pacific, and very strong in the Kelvin wave generation area. That does not impart energy to the jet stream when you're in this configuration. But it's actually anomalies, the differences from normal for this time of year. You see no real arrows in this area, indicating, well, these strong east winds, it's pretty typical for this time of year in this location. Same thing in the Central Pacific. But in the Kelvin wave generation area, these east winds are nuking strong, okay? And we have a theory around this, okay? And we'll get into that in a little bit more. But just remember, strong east winds in the Kelvin wave generation area typically do not feed energy to the jet stream, which typically doesn't feed the storm track, which typically leaves us high and dry and without surf. We are high and dry, but we certainly are not without surf. All right, pushing on the forecast for the next week, and we're going to do this at a pretty good clip because there's a lot of material to cover here, and some of it has not changed a whole lot from week to week. All right, so this is the whole planet on one chart. What we're interested in is that what we call the Kelvin wave generation area, the West Pacific, because when the active phase of the MJO pushes over there, feeds energy to the jet stream. Clearly the jet stream's raging, but clearly there's no active phase of the MJO over the Kelvin wave generation area. We talked some about this last week. We'll continue down that road. But for now, all right, so what are we looking at? There's the date line. Kelvin wave generation area starts here and goes to about here. That's the West Pacific. The purples are easterly anomalies, typically a sign of the inactive phase of the MJO. The reds are westerly anomalies. These are in the Indian Ocean. This is the Indian Ocean over here. So the active phase of the MJO looks like it's permanently set up in the Indian Ocean. The inactive phase is raging, permanently set up in the Kelvin wave generation area. Typically, this would be exactly what you don't want to see. But we think there's a thing going on. When you have these westerly anomalies here, that also suggests there's some rise. There's like low pressure there. And we think what's happening is we'll call it a low pressure bias, and we'll get into this in a minute, is centered over the Indian Ocean. It's like acting like a chimney, sucking winds up into the atmosphere, and the outflow from that is actually feeding the jet stream, and the jet stream's raging as it pushes over the Kelvin wave generation area and across much of the North Pacific. So in a way, we kind of have it's like, because this La Nina, at least atmospherically, is so strong, it's actually feeding the jet stream from the Indian Ocean and therefore feeding the storm track across the Pacific. And so we're getting sort of the best of both worlds. We're getting a raging jet stream, great storm production, but no rain, no wind into the U.S. West Coast or Hawaii, so you get relatively grim conditions and massive swell. Hard to believe, but that's what we think is going on. And the forecast for the next week, yes, we got off track. The forecast for the next week, no change in what it's been since, right before Christmas. So the beat goes on. That was a 1 week forecast. Let's go out 2 weeks. This is outgoing long wave radiation. We're still looking for signs of the active phase of the MJO. I mean, at this point, I don't know that it really matters, but we're doing it anyway. So the reds are areas, this outgoing long wave radiation. It's a 15-day forecast, 0, 5, 10, 15. You can see 4 panels, South America, Central America, the equator running right there, EQ, Australia, Kelvin wave generation area right there. There's the Indian Ocean. All right, so the red is the inactive phase of the MJO. More sunlight reflectivity off the ocean surface, no clouds. Okay, the blue is the active phase of the MJO. Remember we said there's a low pressure bias here in the Indian Ocean? That's what we're seeing. Active phase of the MJO here acting like a chimney, pushing energy, warm, moist air up into the atmosphere. It's tapping the jet stream and then raging across the Pacific. Anyway, basically the same pattern per the statistic model is to hold for the next 2 weeks, maybe weakening slightly as the active phase perhaps migrates into the West Pacific. The dynamic model, it says active phase pretty much staying where it is. In fact, we want to see this active phase pretty strong here if our theory is correct, because that's what feeds the jet stream. So according to this, maybe for the next 10 days, we're going to be in great shape. But then both models, as we get to the 15-day period, suggest maybe some less energy being fed into the jet stream from the active phase here, and maybe a weaker storm track. Okay, let's dig some more. Phase diagram charts. One is from the statistic model, one from the dynamic model. What are we looking at? See that circle there? Assume you're looking down on the North Pole, and the MJO travels around the edges of our planet on the equator, from the Indian Ocean to the maritime continent, to the West Pacific, East Pacific, under the United States, across North Africa, back to the Indian Ocean. Okay, the heavy dot right there is where the active phase is, in the Indian Ocean. And the further it is away from the circle, the stronger it is. So, not very strong. If it was way out here, it'd be really strong. But we'll call it almost a weak active phase. And here's the forecast tracks 2 weeks out, suggesting it staying, or actually collapsing, getting weaker, and moving over the maritime continent, roughly. The dynamic model, suggesting some flavor of the same thing, with the active phase over the maritime continent and exceedingly weak 2 weeks from now. The upper level model is up again and working. Okay, so what are we looking for? The yellows are areas not favorable for precipitation. Green's favorable for precipitation. So favorable precipitation means low pressure, means the active phase of the MJO, somewhere here in the Indian Ocean. Inactive phase over generally the Pacific. And you can kind of sense this is a statistical model. It suggests the active phase by about January 15th is start pushing into the West Pacific and then fade as it makes its way across the Pacific into the end of January. And then here comes another big inactive phase of the MJO starting late January and pushing across the Pacific the whole way into middle to late February. So no active phase, no classical pattern of any real interest here, and pretty much a La Nina signal, right? CFS model, this goes out a month. This is the east-west component of the wind. We're still looking for active phase, inactive phase thing, all right? The Kelvin wave generation area starts about 135 east right here and ends at about 170 west, right where all this blue is. You can see the blues are easterly anomalies. The reds are westerly anomalies. Today's date, well, a day or two old, but you get the idea. Right there, hard easterly anomalies controlling the Kelvin wave generation area. Forecast to hold into almost the end of January, then moderating some. The active phase of the MJO, right here, the solid contour, but not going anywhere, just stuck in the Indian Ocean. Same deal with the inactive phase. It's already pretty much past, not making it to the Kelvin wave generation area. The MJO pretty much having no effect on anything. This is all a La Nina show, hard as can be, as clear-cut as it can be. So we look at the purple dotted line here. That's that it's a high pressure bias. The purple solid line here is the low pressure bias. And you can see the atmosphere is very primed, very stable, very unchanging, no real modulation by the MJO. La Nina in control. Low pressure over the Indian Ocean, high pressure over the Pacific Ocean. And we again are guessing that this low pressure is this strong low pressure bias and westerly anomalies in the Indian Ocean are what is feeding the jet stream and making all our surf. And then one more view from the CFS model going out 3 months. The only difference this time is the forecast is up top, past performance is down here. Kelvin wave generation area, you can see it right with your eyes. You just draw a line right there, and it starts there and goes to 170 west right there. Blues, 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 easterly anomalies in control of the Kelvin wave generation area, and forecast into almost the end of February. So if you were to guess at when the existing pattern might start breaking down, you'd say, from this, I'd say, maybe the end of February. Now, I mean, that's great news from a surf perspective. From a rain perspective, it's horrible because we're just high and dry in California. We might need a spare set of arms if this keeps up the way it's been. I mean, I'm not complaining at all. Anyway, okay, so let's overlay the MJO here. All right, so the dotted contour is the inactive phase of the MJO. That's supposed to continue in the Kelvin wave generation area in some fashion into, we'll say, mid-February. Active phase, theoretically building, moving over the Kelvin wave generation area the end of February. That might kill the jet stream, or it might actually feed it. Hard to say. Westerly anomalies building and strong. Don't know if we really believe that. The model's been teasing this for 2 months, and it never happens. We just sit in this kind of, well, here's the actuals down here. You see just blues, blues, blues. No westerly anomalies. Nothing since a little bit in October. Since then, it's a full La Nina show. Overlay the low-pass filter. Again, this is the dotted lines here. This is the high-pressure bias. It's actually supposed to build. Today, it's building from 1, 2, 3 contours to 4 contours. And as we get into early February, 5 contours, and then fading after that. The low-pressure bias, which we think is feeding the jet stream, is building to 2 contours in the Indian Ocean. Forecast to continue into about early March, something like that. I mean, at the way things are going, it seems like the pattern we're in, and I'll probably just totally curse it by even saying it, but kind of looks like we could be stuck here for quite a while, which from a rain perspective is horrible, from a snow perspective is horrible, from a surf perspective is pretty darn good. All right, enough MJO. Let's go talk La Nina. What's going on in the ocean? West Pacific here, East Pacific here. Data from the TAO buoy rays, series of buoys strung across the equator. These are the anchor lines on those buoys. The X's are sensors on those anchor lines. They collect data, relay it up to a central computing center that then uses a model to fill in the gaps. You get a subsurface ocean equatorial temperature profile. We're looking for Kelvin waves, warm water pushing off to the east. We don't see any, of course. The 28 degree, so we used to have the 29 degree isotherm. It's gone. Temperatures actually kind of dropped a little bit. 28 degree isotherm, pretty much solid around, well, maybe backtracking to almost 160 east a little bit. And the 24 degree isotherm holding at about 120 west, maybe 116 or 17 today. So no real change from last week. But it is the anomalies, differences from normal for this time of year. This paints the picture pretty clear. Warm water, 1, 2, almost 3 degrees centigrade above normal, making it no further to the east than 165 west. That's even not even to Hawaii. And filling the entire Pacific to almost, well, to the date line and a little bit beyond. 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 degrees centigrade below normal temperatures. Typical La Nina pattern. Strong trades in control, causing upwelling. And so that in turn does not feed cloud development or evaporation here. And so you don't get the rain into California. And that's the typical La Nina kind of pattern. Sea level anomalies. This is JSON 3 satellite data. Strip out the waves, strip out the wind waves, strip out the tides. We're just trying to see, is the ocean higher or lower than normal from a spherical perspective? And okay, so there's, South America, Peru right in there. Central America, this is the equator right there. Dateline running right down there. New Guinea there, a little bit of Australia there. See blues from Baja, from Northern California, the whole way out to the dateline, the whole way down into southern Chile. Negative 10, minus 15 in pockets. That's minus 15 centimeters. The ocean is depressed a little bit. It's lower than normal. What that means or infers is that there's cold water at depth. Cold water contracts. When it does that, it creates a divot on the ocean surface, and that's what's doing this. Strong easterly trades here, pushing water off to the west. You see plus 20 here. That infers warm water. It expands, creates a bump on the ocean surface, and also the pushing of the winds. So there's a big pool of warm water building here, a big pool of cool water here. The trades, as long as they're blown, will keep that balance in check. But as soon as the trades collapse, this warm water will start sloshing to the east. It'll do it in the form of a massive Kelvin wave. We don't expect that to happen anytime soon. But this is typically, when you get a strong enough La Nina, that's what happens. It can actually build up, and then, in effect, help usher in El Nino sometime, not this year, but maybe next year. Just another view of that same sort of pattern. This is the whole Pacific Ocean, upper ocean heat anomalies. Going back March, whatever, you see the building of the reds. This is the West Pacific here, East Pacific here. Building of temperatures in the West Pacific, the collapse of temperatures in the East Pacific, peaking right around Halloween. They seem to be not as cold as they were, but certainly no warm water pushing off to the east. The atmosphere is coupled with the ocean. What's that mean? That means the atmosphere, because there's all this cold water, it's like high pressure just locked over the East Pacific, low pressure here, or warmer temperatures locked over, it's really over the Indian Ocean and trying to ease into the West Pacific, but not making it much further. We're getting this building imbalance of water temperatures driven by the atmosphere sensing this cold water here, driving high pressure, driving the trades, but at some point, the dam will collapse. See surface temperatures. This is no different than what we've seen weeks past. There is Chile, Peru, Central America. You see it. And then where's Hawaii? Hawaii is hiding out here. The blues, colder than normal temperatures, massive La Nina signal, cold water running off of Peru. You notice there's actually a little bit of warm water trying to build there. And the cold water is not nearly as cold as it was. I mean, there was massive pockets of cold water in this area. The trades perhaps have relaxed a little bit. I mean, they're actually normal trades according to the TAO buoy array as of late. Cold water limited to out here in the far West Pacific. And even this colder water here doesn't seem to be as cold as it was. So, and it's just here on the equator that things really matter. This is still the classic La Nina signature, but what we're thinking is we're maybe past the peak of La Nina, at least in the ocean, but the atmosphere lags behind and is raging now in a full La Nina pattern. All right, 7-day sea surface temperature trend anomaly. Temperatures, like we said, are warming. The yellows are warming. The reds are warming. Galapagos right there. Ecuador right there. Peru there. So a gently warming pattern suggesting the ocean is kind of not saying that La Nina is over, but, well, we're past the peak of it. It's moderating. The atmosphere, it's months behind, right? Okay? The ocean can kind of vary. Things can change, but they're coupled. So the atmosphere is running behind the ocean. So the atmosphere at this time, I think, is at the peak of its La Nina prowess, where the ocean's already, I'm kind of over La Nina. I'm not done, but at least I'm past the peak. So, but the atmosphere is what we really care about right now, and it's doing amazingly well from a storm production perspective. The overview picture, you see it here quite well. Temperature's not as cold at all in this area right here. Still pretty chilly off of Chile. And the official El Nino monitoring region, the Nino 3.4 region, from 120 west, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, out to about 170 west right there. We'll get into that in just a second. That's the official El Nino monitoring region. Temperatures in this area is what we're going to be looking for. And then the Nino 1.2 regions, like right along in here. Kind of noisier, maybe an earlier indicator at best. So let's go look at those temperatures. Nina 1.2 region, temperatures today, half a degree, 0.452 below normal. Anything half a degree, well, this is not the official area, but anything in the official area half a degree or less is, for 5 consecutive months, is La Nina. This is still much colder than average, but appears to be trying to trend upwards. If you draw a line from there where we were 1.5 degrees below normal to where we are today, seems to indicate that warming trend. The official El Nino monitoring region, the Nino 3.4 region, dead flat today, minus 1.011 degrees below normal. Clearly in the La Nina territory, clearly been that way for quite a while, and no change expected, at least for the next couple of months. All right, so what does the atmosphere think we're doing? We've talked all about the ocean, down in the ocean, and at the surface. Okay, and that sort of sets up first. The atmosphere responds in kind. So, difference in pressure between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti. When pressure is lower over Tahiti, the index is negative. When pressure is higher over Tahiti, which represents the Pacific Ocean, then it's positive. Today's value, plus 8.20, and you can just eyeball down through here. 25s, 23s, it's been positive. We can scroll down here. You go. 34s, you get the idea. Clearly, on the daily contribution, a La Nina signal. The 30-day average, plus 19.43. Still rising. That's pretty high. That's a clear La Nina signal. The 90-day average, that's a lagging indicator, 10.57, and probably still heading up. When this one gets about 12, you're for sure La Nina, but this is so lagging that it's kind of almost laughable. Let's go look at a curve or a chart mapping this out here, the 30-day average. Here we go. Today up here at 20. You can see the trend since April of 2019. Up, 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 steep up. The upward trends are the inactive phase of the MJO. The downward trends are the active phase. We've had 1 or 2 downward active phases of any magnitude since, we'll say, June, and that's it. Otherwise, it's all been upward. Clearly, a La Nina signal. The atmosphere is still building its La Nina pattern, though the ocean is kind of moderating, going, maybe I've done my thing. The atmosphere lags behind, but still is building. If that's actually a good thing, if our theory about what's feeding the jet stream is true, then that suggests that the pattern that we're in is going to continue, at least for a bit longer. And finally, the official Nino 3.4 region sea surface temperature anomaly forecast. Okay, we've been negative in July, October. We bottomed out around Halloween. This is the middle of the month, by the way, these lines are. Down at about minus 1.25 degrees. Today we're at right about 1 degree. The forecast is for a gentle, slow rising of temperatures into April at maybe, what is that? That's a half a degree there. So we'll say about a third of a degree below normal, holding for the summer. And this model suggests moving back into La Nina territory in the fall. And that would not be unexpected, actually, given where we're at, given the strength of the La Nina. But my guess is somewhere around the February-March timeframe, all this is going to collapse. You're going to start seeing a massive Kelvin wave push across the Pacific. Warm water. If we really stay in La Nina this long, then there's going to be, easterly trades are going to nuke. A lot of warm water build up in the West Pacific, and at some point, we said before, the dam's got to break. You got to come back to a balance. The atmosphere loves balance. It always overcorrects. So La Nina is an overcorrection of a previous warm cycle, and then if we get too cold for too long, it will go back and the pendulum will swing the other way, and at some point we'll end up with some sort of El Nino pattern, and we're probably due for it anyway. All right, the obvious and good news is the jet stream's raging, the storm track's raging. We've got 3 more storms on the charts at least, and all of them pretty strong. For normal mortal surfers, this is too much, but if you're into big waves or you have protected breaks you can get to, this is a pretty good situation. And light winds in California, and Hawaii is doing quite well too. Maybe not over the top big, but consistent 8 to 10 foot surf every day. So not with trades, no less. So not a bad pattern at all. Rain wise, nary a drop. The San Francisco Bay Area is like 28 to 30% of normal for this time of year. Snowpack, yeah, they're reporting like a 50-inch base up at Tahoe, but with all the warm temperatures coming, that might get eroded a little bit. And if it doesn't snow, it actually, some of it evaporates over time. So relative water-wise speaking, we're not in good shape for this winter at all. The plus side is we get surf. All right, and longer term, we think this is going to go on. And we see no real end in sight, at least until mid-February, something like that. So make the most of it, right? We forecast, we'll flat out admit it. We forecast this is going to be a lousy year, but something magic is happening right now. You never get surf like this during a La Nina year. So take it for all it's worth. Be safe, right? But go get surf. Enjoy it. This is kind of a special thing that's happening right now. It's a special La Nina, and that's all good. We'll take it. All right, so if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. If you have any comments, please post to the comments section. We'll do our best to reply. The surf situation's been pretty hard to get us away from the ocean and take care of technical business, but we will try to respond within a reasonable period of time, and we get some good discussions going on in the comments section there. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Get automatic notifications when we post the video. If not, go to stormsuirf.com. All this info is available there. You can follow along weekly and then check your knowledge with the video typically on Sundays. All right, so that's it for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week. Same time, same channel.